Hi, everybody. This is a Jeff Townsend media production. Rawr.
Have you been searching for a podcast? Do you want to learn from some great content creators? Well, you've come to the right place. Indie Podcaster with your host, Jeff Townsend, the Indie Podcast Father.
This is Jeff Townsend, and as you're aware, Indie Podcaster is currently on a break. I'm actually tied up with a job in the podcast industry and then a lot of other projects that I'm working on. But I want to continue to give you some content that you may find helpful along your podcasting journey. With that being said, I'm going to share some episodes of Good Morning Podcasters. Yes, that's right, the return of Good Morning Podcasters. Fuzz Martin and I purchased the rights to that, and podcasting sucks. So today, I'll be sharing some episodes of Fuzz Martin's Good Morning Podcasters with you. This is great information. You could learn a lot from it. To learn more, go to goodmorningpodcasters.com. Let's check out some of these episodes. I'm playing them back to back.
Howdy, podcasters. Today we're talking about Twitter 2.0 and Elon's new check marks. Thanks for tuning in to Good Morning Podcasters. I am your host, Fuzz Martin, and just about each day, we talk about marketing, advertising, PR, and social media topics as they relate to the world of podcasting. I say just about because I'm finding out running a daily podcast is a grind, and I also run a business. For instance, I did not get the chance to release Thursday's episode on hyperlocal podcasting because on Wednesday night, I was at a hyperlocal charity event that Epic had sponsored, and I didn't have enough time in the day to get it into a place that didn't sound like I was rushing it. So we'll save that episode for next week, quality over quantity. Today, however, in this, the 17th episode of Good Morning Podcasters 2.0, we're going to talk about Twitter 2.0, as they're calling it, and their new checkmarks program. Now, just as a note, I'm recording this episode the night before it airs, and obviously it's not live. Elon Musk mentioned on Friday, November 25th, that the new Twitter Blue would be ready to release on Friday, December 2nd, or at least tentatively. There's a chance that he's tweeted in between when I'm recording this and when it's published that something has changed. So if that happens, I will update this episode. So here we go. Let's talk about Twitter 2.0. In a post on Twitter's blog on Thursday called Twitter 2.0, Our Continued Commitment to the Public Conversation, Twitter reemphasized its mission of promoting and protecting, and this is a quote, promoting and protecting the public conversation and being the town square of the internet. They laid out some assurances for Twitter users. They said that their policies haven't changed and that they're going to rely more heavily on de-amplification of content that is problematic instead of removing users. They said, quote, freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, which to me is, if you're reducing reach, isn't that the same as their whole freedom of speech point? Like, is it okay to say people who have this thought aren't going to get the reach, but people who have this thought are, versus we're going to remove people who think this way and not people who think that way? Is there any difference between removing people and reducing their reach to nothing? They said their trust and safety team is continuing to keep the platform safe from hateful content, abusive behavior, and violation of any Twitter rules. They reassured us that the team remains strong and well-resourced and that they're using automatic detection. They said they will ensure that content moderators will have guidance to find and address violative content when urgent events manifest on the platform. They said they will improve their policies and processes to adapt and identify and diffuse threats. Again, saying that they're going to reduce impressions of violative content. And they said they're going to make mistakes and learn from them. One of the other big things they spoke about in the article was that they are now embracing public testing, and they believe that just putting new stuff out in the open helps them move faster and gather feedback in real time. And finally, and this is a direct quote, we remain committed to providing a safe, inclusive, entertaining, and informative experience for everyone. We will continue to be transparent as we move through this transition period, and we will listen to you, the people who make Twitter what it is, the town square of the internet. I'll link to that full blog post in the show notes. I have to say, while I know there's a ton of people up in arms, and I have been one of them, especially as a person whose agency has clients that spend money on the platform, and brand safety is a real thing, whether you believe it or not, I do like this approach. I do not like a CEO, however, that picks fights with advertisers on social media. Imagine you're Tim Cook and you're getting bullied on Twitter because you're not spending enough money. It's pedantic, it's entitled, and it's detrimental to both Apple and Twitter. That said, according to Musk's tweets, at least, it looks like the new Twitter and the old Apple have made up, but we'll see what happens. And again, it's hard to want to spend clients' money on Twitter when the CEO is being an instigator. Anyway, as I said before, we'll see how this plays out. I'm warming up to the changes, but I'm not there yet. So now let's talk about their new verification standards. They're supposed to be coming out today as this episode airs, per Musk's tweet on Friday, though he did hedge with the word tentative. According to Musk, the new verification program will have 3 different styles, we'll say. There will be gold check marks for companies, gray check marks for government, and blue check marks for individuals, whether or not you're a celebrity. All accounts will be manually authenticated before the check activates. And according to their website, users will have to be signed up for Twitter for at least 90 days before it's available to be verified. But that said, a lot of bad actors and a bunch of bot accounts have been created a long time ago and are just sitting around collecting dust waiting to be activated. So I'm sure spinning up these accounts that are 90 plus days old won't take much for those who would like to do harm, but that's me being a cynic. So will I get a check mark? Possibly. Maybe just to try it out because I'm curious like a cat. I might try it out for Good Morning Podcasters. I'm wondering on my own account what hoops I'd have to jump through in order to get a gray check mark because I am an elected official as a trustee of my local village. We'll see. Again, as with anything, we'll see how it goes. We'll adapt from there. Thank you for listening to Good Morning Podcasters. Links and such at goodmorningpod.com. Some housekeeping. I tried to go every single day this week, but we're going to kick this baby back down to 3 days per week, at least through the holidays, just so that I don't wind up in pod hell. I don't want to be pod faded. However, Jeff Townsend and I will be recording an episode of Podcasting Sucks this evening, so you should be able to expect that as a new episode on Saturday morning. Again, you can catch every episode of both Good Morning Podcasters and Podcasting Sucks at goodmorningpod.com. We'll talk to you again real soon right here on Good Morning Podcasters. Good morning, podcasters. If you are thinking of getting into Hive Social, it appears they're having some problems. Thanks for tuning in to Good Morning Podcasters. I'm your host, Fuzz Martin. I was planning this morning to talk to you about some of the new social media platforms and what to expect out of them, but it looks like one in particular is having some growing pains. Right now, the state of social media, it's kind of exciting. With Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, a lot of people and sponsors are concerned about the direction of the platform, and some are looking for other solutions. So now it feels a bit like 2006 to 2008 when Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Blogger were all coming onto the scene and started taking market share from MySpace. There was a rush to bring out all these new platforms, and everyone was trying them out, seeing what they liked. It's kind of like the Wild West a bit of social media. Well, today, in addition to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, etc., we now have Mastodon, Post News, Hive Social, and probably some others that I'm not aware of yet. I've tried Mastodon, but it's kind of hard to wrap your head around how to use it or what server to join. For instance, a few months ago, I had received an invite to the Podcast Index server and then decided to sign on when everyone was talking about jumping ship off of Twitter. However, I don't know if the podcast index people actually want me using that handle for general use. So even though I signed up, I haven't been. Mastodon kind of feels like we're crashing some geeky kid's party while his parents are out of town. And then us Twitter users are, in there knocking over vases and puking on the rug. I'm pretty sure the OG Mastodon users who like it there don't like all the added traffic, and they especially don't like seeing people like us trying to make Mastodon turn into Twitter. Post News is a really neat program. It's still very much in beta, but the fonts, the layout, the way images are displayed, it's really nice and clean. It makes you feel like you're reading the New York Times or Washington Post while you're reading social media. With Post, you can sign up for the beta, and they're letting people in every day, but they seem to be vetting users before they let them onto the platform. There's no app for Post News yet. It's currently just a browser-based site, though they do give you instructions on how to download a Safari shortcut that looks like an app if you're an iPhone user. But the one thing I really don't like currently about Post News is that it doesn't give you notifications, so it lacks that interaction unless you're actually going in and reviewing your own posts to see if anybody's liked or commented. But again, it's in beta. They're very vocal about it being in beta. And I think of the new platforms, Post News probably has the most potential. And then there's Hive Social. I want so much to like Hive Social. It's colorful. It feels like another version of Twitter. It's got that microblog kind of feel to it. It does have an app. It's still very much in its infancy stage. It's real easy to find and like people on the app. However, Hive Social recently had a massive data leak, which is either going to set them back greatly or kill the platform entirely. According to Gizmodo, Hive has been forced to pull its servers offline due to a data breach. Hive Social had seen 1 million plus users growth in the span of 1 week following Musk's takeover of Twitter. Gizmodo pointed to a German security blog called Zerforschung, which said, quote, "The issues we reported allow any attacker to access all data, including private posts, private messages, shared media, and even deleted direct messages. This also includes private email addresses and phone numbers entered during login. Attackers can also overwrite data such as posts owned by other users." Yikes. In response to that, Hive Social shut its servers down on Thursday. So if you're planning on signing up, you might want to wait because you have to, because the servers are down. But you also might want to reconsider altogether. I would delete my account, but I can't get on the server to delete my account. And according to this, who knows if it actually would even be deleted. So it appears those of us who are trying this out hugged Hive Social to death. We'll see if it turns back around. All of that aside, I think it's good to experiment with new platforms as they come out. I think it's also important for your brand that you sign up and claim your usernames as soon as you start hearing about these new platforms. It's a lot easier to do that early on than to try to claim your URL once somebody's already squatted on it. Again, these are tips from 2006 Fuzz coming back. But again, sometimes stuff happens and your data leaks. If you're using the same password on every platform, consider, first of all, not doing that. And second of all, consider changing your passwords everywhere. And if you're using your personal cell phone number to sign up for these things, you might want to consider using Google Voice or some other third-party phone number system in order to keep yourself from leaking your personal phone number out. I'll link to the Gizmodo and Zerforschung articles in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Good Morning Podcasters. Again, I'm going to be stepping back the frequency of this show to about 3 times per week as I focus on quality, not quantity, and also focus on some of the other responsibilities in my life. Find all the episodes on goodmorningpod.com, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days, right here on Good Morning Podcasters. Good morning, podcasters. This morning, I'm going to give you a description of my transcription process. Welcome to the 19th episode of the all-new Good Morning Podcasters. I am Fuzz Martin, and I appreciate you listening or reading. Let's talk about transcriptions. Actually, let's start with why we should create transcriptions for our podcasts. First and foremost, it's the right thing to do. Not everyone can hear. Obviously, transcribing your show instantly makes your show more accessible to people with hearing loss. Just like the reverse, where audio versions of a written article help those with visual impairments. And just like most things in the world, if you do the right thing, you will be rewarded. Google and other search engines, which really means Bing, can read the text from your transcriptions, and when it's done correctly, it will help you in the search engine rankings. So, first do it for the people, and then do it for your show. Now let's talk about what software is out there for you to use. There's a ton of different transcription softwares, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them. And I'm not going to tell you which one you should use. I'll tell you which one I'm using and which ones I have used, but I'm going to let you make the decision on your own. Really, it comes down to you should be doing transcriptions, but there's a million different ways to get there. Descript is very well respected. You also get their audio editor, their audiograms, and a whole lot more. I believe it's $12 per month if you bill it annually. I used it for a bit, but then I stopped when I got a new MacBook with an M1 processor, and for a while, they were incompatible with that. I think they're compatible now. I'm almost 99% positive they're compatible now. But it wasn't for a bit, and that threw a wrench into my workflow. I've heard good things about Rev, but it's pricey. It costs 25 cents per minute, which for a 20-minute podcast is $5. And if you're doing 4 20-minute podcasts a month, you're looking at $20. And then there are other options out there for transcriptions that will cost you less. So while I tried Rev and I think the quality is good, I don't think the price is there for most podcasters. I've also heard good things about Podden.io. That's $9 a month. That will get you 2 hours of transcriptions, or $19 a month for up to 8 hours of transcriptions. I have not used it, but I've seen people like Danny Brown of PodChat say nice things about that. So what do I use? I use Otter.ai. So Otter has a free version. It's not really conducive to doing a podcast because the free version requires that you transcribe in real time. You can't upload a file. You get like 5 uploads when you start your free version. But if you want to do that regularly, you need the pro version. So the pro version costs $8.33 per month when you bill it annually. It jumps up significantly, like 51%, if you don't buy annually. So it's $16.99 per month if you buy month to month, but $8.33 per month averaged out if you bill it annually. With the pro version, you can import your show's audio or video files. It gives you 1,200 minutes per month at that $8.33 per month level. The editor is super easy to use. You can add in different kind of odd words into its library so that it gets the spelling right every time. If you have regular or rotating guests on your show, it will recognize their voices and put their name with it automatically. You don't have to go in and update that once you've done it once. So if you have a guest that's on 1 week and then doesn't come back for a few episodes, and then they do come back, Otter will recognize their voice and attach their name inside of your transcript. It's really cool. So again, many different platforms for transcribing podcasts. I didn't even scratch the surface, but I prefer Otter, and I really like Descript. So what's my workflow for adding transcripts to my show? Well, after I finish editing, I'll upload my audio file to my host, Captivate. And while that's uploading, I'll open up Otter.ai and start uploading the audio there concurrently. While those are both uploading, which only takes a few minutes because this show's pretty short, I finish my show notes and add in my research links in Captivate. Then I toggle back to Otter when the transcript is done. I'll click the edit button and I'll go through and make any updates to the transcript, any errors or things that I see. It's not a human transcribing it, so it gets you pretty close. But I would say it takes me about 5 to 10 minutes worth of reading and making updates for a 10 to 15 minute podcast. Then I export the transcript as text. From there, I paste the transcript into the transcript section of my host on a new episode link, and then I schedule my episode. Once I do that, I open up Squarespace, which this website's on Squarespace. I'll open up Squarespace, put together my blog post. Once the blog post is ready, I'll add in what is called an accordion block to the site, and then I'll call the block transcript, and I'll paste the copy into the body of the accordion. So now when you go to goodmorningpod.com, you click on an episode. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the word transcript. You click on that, and it will expand to show you the full transcript. On 15 Minutes with Fuzz, which is a hyper-local podcast that I do, I use podcastpage.io, and they've got a handy transcript field that automatically pulls in from the RSS feed through Captivate. So it's a nice automated little feature where every episode that posts the transcript is automatically getting posted to the website, which really streamlines the process. And then on my wife's podcasts page, which is a WordPress website at smartinwi.com, I've added an advanced custom field just for transcripts into each blog post. So we'll create her blog post, and then at the bottom, there's an extra field called transcript. I'll paste that in there. That's set up as an accordion field too. So once that blog post gets published, it's on there as transcript. You click on that, and it expands that accordion so people can read it. Just a word of advice, though, when you're adding a transcript to your website, you could add it as an iframe embed. A lot of the different transcription services offer this iframe embed. However, I don't like this for 2 reasons. One, an iframe is not going to get searched by Google. Google actually says we recommend you avoid the use of iframes to display content. So automatically you're taking away from that SEO bump that you could get. And since Google said not to do it, there's no room for interpretation there. Number 2, if you ever decide to cancel your transcription service, you're going to have a whole bunch of blog posts with broken embedded iframes. And I know I said 2, but here's a third. With an embedded transcript, you're often not able to make updates to the design or layout of the content. So if you're looking to make your site more accessible, that might mean increasing the font size or changing the font style. And that's easy if the content is actual text on your website, but if you're embedding from another site, it makes it really hard to do without some website trickery. So again, it's best to put that copy right onto your site and let it do its own work. So again, I put my transcripts into 2 different places. One, in the area that allows on my host, so it gets into my RSS feed. Not all hosts have this feature yet, but if you have one, I recommend you take advantage of it. And then 2, I put it on my website blog post that accompanies each of these episodes. That'll do it for another episode of the all-new Good Morning Podcasters. If you have a different way of doing transcripts, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on Twitter at GM Podcasters, or you can message me on Instagram at Good Morning Pod. You can find this show and its transcript at goodmorningpod.com. And since you're a podcaster and this is a podcast about podcasting for podcasters, I assume that you know where to find podcasts and how to subscribe to them. So thank you in advance. And we'll talk to you again on Friday, right here on Good Morning Podcasters. Good morning, podcasters. Let's talk about local podcasting. My name is Fuzz Martin, and this is Good Morning Podcasters, a show about marketing, advertising, social media, and public relations topics as they relate to podcasters. And we try to make it as actionable as possible because nobody likes a guru. Let's talk today about local podcasting, or specifically hyper-local podcasting. So what is hyper-local podcasting? Well, It's a show that's focused on a very small geography. It could be a show that's focused on all sorts of things within that geography. So it's not necessarily focused on talking about the geography. It could be focused on things within that. So maybe it's news, politics, the local music scene, food, hospitality and travel, nonprofit organizations or charities, businesses in the area, interesting people, attractions, entertainment, the art scene, a specific local industry. It could be any of those things and so much more. There's no real geographical limit either to being hyper-local. It doesn't mean that it has to be a certain size or diameter. It could be a city, a region, a smaller municipality, something of that nature. I like to think of hyper and hyper-local as meaning that the listeners know that the show is focused on them. So it could be hyper-local to something like the entire tri-state area. But those listening outside of the area would just be observers outside the fishbowl and not any focus of the show. The people inside that fishbowl would know that this show is about them and their community. Make sense? For instance, I host a show called 15 Minutes with Fuzz. It's solely focused on positive people, places, and things in and around Washington County, Wisconsin. Washington County only has a population of 137,175 people. And I want each of them who listen to feel like the show is for them. I've had guests ask me why I don't promote it to all of Wisconsin, or at least to all of southeastern Wisconsin. Again, going back, I want my listeners to know that I am focused on them and what they hear is going to be meaningful within their community, not a broad-based entertainment piece. There are some cool positives that come with running a hyper-local show. So people who are guests on the show are very likely to share it with their friends and family within the community. They're likely to share it on Facebook. They're likely to tell people about it at the grocery store or at work, or while they're getting coffee at the local coffee shop. People who don't typically listen to podcasts will find a way to tune in to hear that, whether it's on your web browser. That's what I've found a lot, is that people listen through a web browser if they're not typically podcast listeners. But even in this year's podcast Spotify Wrapped, I had 25 people whose main show that they listen to is 15 Minutes with Fuzz. In comparison, James Cridland from Pod News Daily had said that 7 people had said his podcast was their number one podcast, according to Spotify Wrapped. So when you get into the hyper-local place, it's really easy to get in front of people who don't listen to a lot of podcasts. The advertisers that you can pitch as a hyper-local podcaster become very clear. All you have to do is drive around your community and see who you'd think would be a good fit. And you can actually get out of your car, or you could walk into the store or walk into that business and talk to a real person about why they should advertise on your podcast. You can reach out, make your offer, show them the value. It's very much like local radio advertising, except you don't have a bunch of overhead, so you can keep your prices lower and you get all those funds. There's not a lot of overhead to give out other than your podcast hosting fee and all of this cool equipment that you can buy. Another positive about doing a hyper-local podcast is that you'll become known for what you do. Like, people will know you in your community. They'll say, oh, you're, Fuzz, you do that podcast about positive things in Washington County. Oh, you're Jack, you do a show about country music in Evansville, Indiana. You can be well known for that. And also, it's very easy to advertise your show. So not just finding advertisers, but actually advertising out. If you're doing a hyper-local show about something in your community, it's real easy to run some Facebook ads or Instagram ads in your local market. And people are always interested in hearing about those things that are going on in their area. And I will tell you, they're more likely to click on a podcast about something going on in their area than they are about so many other things. There are, though, some negatives about hyper-local podcasting. One, your local listening population is finite. This isn't a huge deal if your hyper-local is like Manhattan. But when it's Podunk USA, don't expect 1 million listeners per episode. You might even consider less than 100 a success. But if you're connecting with people within that community, it will be successful. And since your audience reach is going to be so much lower, it's going to be harder to do things like CPM advertising, where you're getting, cost per 1,000 listeners. It's going to be hard to price your podcast that way. But if you have a popular show about an area, places like banks and real estate brokers who can make a lot of money off of one sale might have some opportunities for you. It's not as scalable as something like a broader reach global show, but you can create some real relationships. A third thing in negatives about hyperlocal podcasting, if you piss somebody off, everybody's going to know about it. As they say on the hit Canadian TV show Letterkenny, bad gas travels fast in a small town. And finally, you're likely not going to see big numbers with a hyperlocal podcast. Again, unless your hyperlocal is a big city. However, when people do find your show, they're more likely to listen to your back catalog and find out what you talked about that they're familiar with and that is important to them. If you have a hyperlocal show and you want to tell me some of the things that work for you, send me an email, fuzz@goodmorningpod.com. Or if you're looking to do a hyperlocal show and you want my opinion, send me an email. Again, fuzz@goodmorningpod.com, and we can share some ideas. Thanks for listening to Good Morning Podcasters. Get in touch by going to goodmorningpod.com. We've got a new episode of Podcasting Sucks with Jeff Townsend tomorrow morning, if you're listening on the Friday that this came out. Podcasting Sucks comes out Saturday mornings right here on the Good Morning Podcasters RSS feed. Otherwise, you can find all of the episodes for Good Morning Podcasters at goodmorningpod.com, and we will talk to you again tomorrow morning right here on Good Morning Podcasters. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for telling a friend. But more importantly, thank you for supporting independent content creators. If you're enjoying the podcast or like the work we're doing in the indie podcaster community, I ask you to tell just one fellow content creator that hasn't heard of this podcast or the work we're doing and share it with them. But more importantly, I hope you continue with me on this journey as the indie podcaster. Keep being you. Keep being great.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?
Jeff Townsend Media.